What age does geriatric pregnancy typically start for a woman?
19.
What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be reacting to a video titled "Are Mothers Making Daughters Angry?" Let's go ahead and get right into this video. Make sure you guys don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So here we go.
Are you raising your daughters to be wives?
Yes, I am. My daughter is on honor roll.
That's a good student. That's not necessarily a wife.
And she's on honor roll. She has a nice personality. She's smart. She works hard.
Sounds like a decent human being, but that is not a wife. What is a wife?
She cooks. She's domesticated.
She's a helpmeet to a man.
Mm-hmm.
She cooperates with him. So all the things you just ran down was a citizen, but raising a daughter to be a wife means you're preparing her to be in partnership with the man for a lifetime.
Most parents, I guess, at least in my experience, they'll lead with, like, if their child is, doing well, like, in education, things like that, especially, like, immigrant parents, like, they're gonna be like, oh, yeah, my, like, education's number one, So that's always their number one focus.
Yeah.
So whenever you're talking about your child, that's usually what they're gonna say. But again, his question, he had to ask it a couple times for her to really understand, like, no, not her as a person or, like, intellectually, whatever. It's how are you preparing her to be a wife, or how is she preparing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think for her, she maybe it needs to have some work done there. You know what I mean? That's fine. I think for some parents, they don't really realize it maybe. So they're like, I think I'm doing the best I'm doing. As long as she's in school and she has her education, she should be fine.
Right.
When that's not everything, So
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, some parents are taught the wrong thing from their parents, and then they pass that knowledge on to their offsprings, but that information is not necessarily the best in regards to getting married and being a suitable wife, right?
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and continue. Let's see what else she says.
So what kind of talks about relationships do I have?
We have really long talks about relationships and, the things that should be accepted and shouldn't be accepted, and what you should to have.
You kind of broke up. I couldn't hear what you should what?
To do as a woman to make sure that she's the wife that a man needs.
Okay.
At the time of when that time comes.
Okay. About what age do you think that time should come?
For her, I hope it's like 30.
What about your other daughter?
She is 19.
She's 30.
Okay, so I mean, what are your thoughts on? I know we talked about this in previous videos, but I mean, 30. Come on, right? I mean, that's kind of old-ish.
Yeah.
To get married. Yeah. Right.
If I'm assuming her okay, if she's already one of those parents who are thinking, like, education's number one, that's all I care about as long as my child is educated, that's my main concern.
Yeah.
She's probably thinking, okay, by the time she gets her bachelor's, by the time she gets her master's, works a little bit into her career, and then she'd be able to, and possibly a PhD, then she'd be able to, like, have children and be married at that time. Right?
Oh my God!
I'm serious. Like, that's actually how parents think when it's this mindset of, like, education, So
yeah, but you're kind of out of the dating scene for such a long time, right? You can't just go back into it with all the tools, the interpersonal skills, things of that nature, in regards to what a man would want, and just flip a switch and just get a man, right? It doesn't work that way, right? You got to kind of be in it in order to know how to attract a man.
Yeah, and that's also another thing too. I don't think she's probably teaching her daughter, like, oh, try meeting somebody while you're in school, right? Most of the time it's like, only focus on school, but let that be your sole focus. Don't let anything distract you. Then once you're done school, then you can start, like, seriously dating and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I know I've heard that from, like, other family members of mine as well. That's that's usually what it is. But no one really remembers. It's like, all right, once I'm out of school though, like, if all my focus is school and I'm trying to now get into a relationship and try to build a future with somebody, I have no relationship experience. Right. I literally been out of the game for 4 years of a bachelor's degree at minimum, and then if you go into your master's, another 6 years out of dating. It's like,
well, you remember what I told you when I first met you, right?
What?
You're at a age, you're at a pivotal age. Remember when I first met you? I said you're at a pivotal age where things can go really well for you, or you can be on the Kevin Samuels show.
100%. I remember this, yeah.
In a couple of years, right? Because right now you're 25, and this is kind of the prime time to, get married and things of that nature, right? So
no, and I already knew that for myself, though. I always told myself, like, I think for me, I wanted, in like my early to mid 20s, it was where I was like, all right, I want to be in something serious, because that's when I want to start, like, actually, like, it takes time to like build a relationship with somebody, and then to have like be married and kids and all that kind of stuff. It takes time. Yeah. So you need to give yourself enough buffer room to find the right person. And if things don't work out, right, like, you at least don't waste time in that situation. You're able to like find the right person for you. Yeah. So. But
I would even counter that a little bit and say, I mean, you should know within a couple of months if you never want to talk to this person again, or maybe you want something serious.
But how long did that take you to really understand, like, I know exactly when to like be like, I'm done?
You shouldn't waste too much time in regards to getting to know somebody, because you should have some sort of sense as to what this person is.
I get that, but at the beginning, especially when you're young though, and you don't date often. I know in my case, when I really did not date. Right. And then so for me, it took time to like, okay, I can make it work with this person. Let me at least just try. Right. So you try, and then you maybe stay in it a little bit longer than you should have. And then you're like, all right, now that I learned my lesson, like, I know how to move forward. So it takes some trial and error, obviously. Yeah. But that's why it's also important, where I wish I involved let's say my dad in more of like the guys that I was talking to, because he would have probably filtered it out better than me, because I'm young and impressionable and I don't know what I'm doing,
So you want your daughter to be an old woman when it comes to be married?
No, I want her to I want her to be educated. I want her to have a college degree before she gets married.
Why?
So that she has that certificate, so that she has that knowledge.
What does a college degree have to do with a husband?
Well, maybe she'll find her husband in college.
And she's not going to graduate till 30?
And no. But if she wants...
Then why so long?
Well, because I expect for her to pursue school for actually...
And what? She's going to get a master's, a PhD? What?
I'm a PhD.
Yes.
And then how? Is she gonna use that PhD to work?
But at the point, like,
you can't make this shit up. You can't make it up. So, in other words, you're raising your daughter to be another one of these single women.
No.
Yeah, you are.
Why?
Because
tell me why.
Because 30 is old for marriage, ma'am.
Is it?
And that's exactly what I was saying. I mean, 30 is kind of old. And when I first met you, I told you specifically, I don't date women that are 30 and over, because they got the bad habits, education first, career woman, independent, free, liberated.
All my life I had to fight.
And that is a headache, frankly. But what are your thoughts on that?
I can see how that could be like why you think like that, but I guess for her, I don't think she really doesn't understand that what she's putting her daughter through right now, instilling in her to say, oh, okay, just solely focus on your career till you're 30, and then let's hope and pray to God that he brings you the right man in your life, and then you'll get married and have kids all in a short period of time. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's her expectation right now. And it takes time to find the right person and to, talk to people and just figure it out, And she's completely ignoring that fact.
Yeah. But the other aspect is, if you go to school for 8 to 10 years, you're not going to school for nothing.
Oh, what is she doing 30 years old? Still in
right.
school?
But what I'm saying is, once you graduate at 30, you're going to want to be in the workforce.
Yeah.
You're going to want to exercise the degree that you worked hard for.
Exactly. All the years you put in, so.
Right. So that's an extra 4 to 5 years in your career, if not longer, right? Time you're, settled in, moved up in the corporate ladder, so to speak, you're 35, 36. And like I said, that's too old.
The thing is, the way to do this correctly is to date while you're in school. No one's saying it's a bad thing to get your education. No one's saying don't do that if it makes sense, right? Don't just go to a master's just to get a master's and get into debt. No one's saying don't do that. But if it makes sense, I'm just saying.
Does it make sense though?
Okay,
like,
come on. If depending on if it's like a STEM like field, whatever,
Right.
like that, things like that, where it's like actually like lucrative for you to do that,
that
and
makes
it makes
sense.
with your job. If it pays you more to like whatever,
Yeah.
that's a different story. But the way to go about it is that if you're gonna go to school, let that be. Of course, focus on school. You know, do well and things like that. But don't fully neglect your social aspect of like, you know, maybe talking to more people, going to different events and things like that, so you can at least meet more people and, you know, date somebody while you're in college. And then by the time both of you, let's say, are done, then ideally that would be a great time for both of you to get married and go from there, you know?
But the other aspect is with $50,000 in debt, you're going to be 35, you know what I mean? You're going to be capped in your career in regards to salary, and then you're going to dump all that debt on a guy, right? Because when you come together with somebody, their debt is your debt.
Yeah.
And a guy's going to have to be responsible for that. And what guy is going to want to do that?
No, okay. So I guess it's okay, especially if you're still young. Let's say everything goes perfectly where you meet somebody when you're in school, right? You're in your second year of university, and then you both meet and you date, and this is the perfect person for you, right?
Yeah.
By the time you guys graduate, let's say 2 years down the line, you guys are maybe like early 20s at that point, maybe like 23, 24, whatever, even 25, let's say, just to be generous. You get married at 25, and then you still have a couple years to build money, like to save up money, you know, like save for the future, things like that, other investments. So you can still pay off those debts before, like, you know what I mean? You can still work like before you have kids, but you can also just kind of plan it out in a way where it's like work for a couple years and then decide, you know, have kids in your like late 20s.
Right.
You know?
No, I hear what you're saying, but in this example specifically, she's saying continue your education, get to that next level.
Yeah.
Right. And that's more of a man's mindset to climb the corporate ladder. So I hear what you're saying, right? If you meet in college or university, ultimately build that rapport, get married, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But again, 30, like you don't need to be in school for 8 to 10 years just to make, you know what I mean? Like that's not the number one thing a guy is going to go for in a woman, right? It doesn't matter how many degrees or diplomas you have. At the end of the day, are you fit, feminine, and friendly? I mean, that's the key takeaway, right?
What age does geriatric pregnancy typically start for a woman?
19.
Geriatric pregnancy, meaning old pregnancy.
Oh.
35. So if she gets married at 30,
I thought it was 40.
like, you need to go back to school. Ma'am, 30 years old, what you're doing is raising your daughter to get out here, to go get a college degree, to live her life, to experience it, and to get out here and have her fun and be an independent woman. And then you think at 30, she's going to turn around and be able to pick a man off the tree. That's not how that works. You're not really raising your daughter to be a wife. You're raising your daughter to be an independent, modern woman.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, and that's why one in four Black women will never marry in their lifetime, because of what you're talking about. Because when I asked you if you're raising your daughter to be a wife, you started citing her education. The first thing, if you watch my show, that's why this whole sound is so funny, because that's what you ladies tend to think we give a out.
She probably just doesn't know better, honestly. So she's just thinking like this is what everybody else kind of tells them, tells you what to do with your children, is like make sure they have their education first. Like that's usually what it is. So she's probably just thinking, oh, that's just the best direction. So that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that also she could be projecting like her own experiences onto her child.
Especially if you have failed previous relationships. And maybe you have a bitter taste about men and the dating scene and things of that nature. And maybe you never end up getting married yourself, right? And then you have a child, and maybe you take that resentment perhaps towards your outcome, or, you know, what you've experienced in your past. As you mentioned before, having your father in your life is key and pivotal.
You can't be a professional and a mother. You got to pick. So you're going to have 4, 6, 8 years of college to what? Just go be a mom? No, that's not how that works. You're raising her to survive the world alone. Nothing in what you said have you talked about, I'm raising her to learn how to cooperate with a man. This is what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow night, why your mothers fail you, ladies. Mothers fail their daughters in this way. You teach them how to be independent. And then you wonder why they can't find men. You say you talk about relationships. Okay. What do you talk about relationships with her? You say in order to know what you need to do for that man, you tell her what to look for in a man?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but what do you tell her to do for a man?
To be submissive.
What does that mean?
To be submissive to him as you are to God.
Okay, submissive. What does submissive mean to you? Because she's so submissive as you are to God. So that means she submits to her husband. So that means she submits to her husband like God?
As she would to God, yeah. Because if she has God in her life, then her husband will come second.
Say the what?
If she's submissive to God first, then her husband would come second.
Ooh, no, not really. It's not how that works.
Okay, well, teach me.
That's not how that works. Your husband comes first.
Okay.
You submit to the God in your husband. See, this is why.
If you look at the Christian community, not all, but some of the Christian community simply don't know the scripture, right? Or they have selective memory in regards to the scripture when it comes to submitting to your man. But let's go ahead and continue. Let's see what else she says.
Okay.
But you ladies were taught wrong. You're teaching your daughter.
Taught wrong. So I'm not.
I'm saying, I know. That's why I said you're not being malicious. I'm saying you're not.
And
it's just
honestly have tried to change the dynamics because I was taught so wrong.
Right. So this is what I'll be talking about tomorrow. The Black community, to break the civil rights movement, it was blunted with two things: feminism and liberal theology. Black women they used the church to separate Black men and Black women under this notion of equality. Black women have always been educated and always, but never most women go to school to find a husband. Black women are going to school to prove they don't need them. And when you talk about submission, submit to your husband, but to Christ first. You submit to the God in your husband.
You're right.
What are your final thoughts?
I think just overall, I think it's really good that he's having this discussion, right? Just to talk about how to, prepare your daughters for the future, right? Not just to focus on education, which is an important part of life, right? Mm-hmm. But also to understand that there's more aspects to life than just your education. And to have like a fulfilling life for most women, it will involve marriage and children, most likely, right? So it's good to at least be able to understand both sides of that, of just like, all right, education is important, but understand that when you're getting your education, don't just completely like subside the relationship aspect of your life, right? So, yeah, it's fair. And to the 8% of the modern women that watch this channel, we're not saying that, don't get your education. Get your education. It's good to be educated. Mm-hmm. But like you said, there's a balance, so to speak, as to being educated and having a husband. And the more degrees and plaques on the wall that you have doesn't make you desirable. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and end this video. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time. Bye, guys.